Good morning and welcome to the Lakers Lowdown. I'm Anthony Irwin. Today on the show, well, saw that coming, right? If you guys watched or listened to yesterday's episode, I told you there would be a step back. And unfortunately, the Lakers weren't able to overcome it. They lose to the Dallas Mavericks, and there are plenty of things to talk about coming out of this one. I'm going to start macro here. Sometimes I like to start micro and work your way out. In this case, I want to start macro here with a couple of points. First and foremost, and I know this is a loaded word with professional athletes, but I have said all season that this is a very entitled Lakers bunch where we see what it looks like when they are fully engaged and they go out and they win the in-season tournament, right? And we also see what it looks like when they are not. And we see what it looks like when they allow the game to dictate the terms and they allow the other team to dictate the terms of that game and the terms of, in the way that game is going to play out. And I thought in this one, it's one thing to like have a stinker every so often. That happens. It's an 82 game season. In the Lakers case this year, they'll play 83 games this regular season. Over the course of that many games, eventually you're going to have games of all kinds and stinkers of all kinds and great games of all kinds. To me, what annoyed me about this game was how predictable this approach was going to be. I just knew coming off of the in-season tournament with a few days off, playing against a team that didn't have Kyrie Irving. Dallas was on the second night of a back-to-back. There was every excuse in the book that the Lakers could use to not take the Dallas Mavericks seriously, and they did so, and I really think that, this team has a proclivity for not respecting the sport and not respecting their competition. Case in point, Dante Exum came into this game shooting 29% from three-point range. He then proceeded to shoot. Where's his number here? Yeah, he started. So 7 of 9 from three-point range, some of which were huge, and they just look like practice shots. And, I'm not saying that you got to sell out to make sure that he can't shoot anymore, but you certainly maybe just once run him off the 3-point line. Maybe maybe once get into his airspace when he's shooting one of those shots. Once it appears that he is, on fire, it honestly was a fire hazard. He was a fire hazard out there. Like his teammates couldn't high five him after he was making his threes because they were concerned that they would get third-degree burns. And the only people who didn't seem to have any interest in adjusting was the Lakers. Like the Mavericks started hunting, they started putting Exum in spots where he could get open looks because they knew that the Lakers weren't going to adjust. And, again, I'm not saying that you pay less attention to Luka Doncic simply because Dante Exum and Grant Williams are out of their minds. Grant Williams, he went 5 of 7 from three-point range. So you have these two guys who are shooting below or around 30% on the season from three-point range, and they make 12 of their 16 attempts. To a certain extent, you're just going to lose that game with that outlandish a shooting from two guys who aren't going to hit. But I also think that the Lakers didn't do enough to break up their rhythm in any real way. And again, it just kind of goes back to the lack of adjustments that we tend to see from Darvin Ham, or maybe if not lack of, but certainly how long it takes to adjust to different circumstances within a game. In this one, this should have been an easy one. And the other thing too is he seemed to adjust coming into this game from what won the Lakers the in-season tournament. The Lakers didn't have Jared Vanderbilt here, but you still had Max Christie available. You still had Cam Reddish available. Um, like there are enough wings to you know present some different offerings to a Dallas team that is a very efficient scoring threat all over the court. And no, instead here, and I'll talk about this here in a second. The Lakers instead went soft with their approach, and it burned them. Like they just couldn't get a stop down the stretch of the game. As the game was in winning territory, the Lakers just didn't get any stops whatsoever. They didn't do a very good job keeping the Mavericks off of the offensive glass. In this one, the Mavericks grabbed 12 offensive rebounds, right? And they all felt like they resulted in 3-point attempts or 3-point makes in this one. And yeah, like if you don't show a team or a player in this case proper respect, you do open yourself up to getting burned. And in this case, the Lakers got burned time and time and time and time again. And like what annoyed me about the way that they were guarding Exum is that they it's one thing if you are leaving Exum and the traps that you are setting elsewhere, that you are sacrificing attention on Exum in the corner. It's one thing if those traps are having any impact on the game whatsoever, or if pre-rotations were having any impact on the game. But oftentimes it was just guys just wandering away. And again, I'm using that term for a reason here. It literally looked like they were like meandering away from where Exum or any shooter was standing. And the Lakers just throughout this game found themselves in no man's land. And again, like, at some point, there's got to be an adjustment. At some point, you look out there and like the one adjustment that we saw from this one was Darvin Ham playing Jackson Hayes and Anthony Davis together to help with some of the rebounding issues. But like, we've seen Taurean Prince not be a good rebounder all year. We've seen D'Angelo Russell not be a good rebounder all year. We watched D'Angelo Russell basically suck for most of this game. He played 25 minutes, and none of those minutes, I never felt to myself, oh, thank God D'Lo's out there. No, I thought it was a weird, you know, the way that the minutes were doled out were weird. Christie only plays 6 minutes, was a +5 in those 6 minutes. Cam Reddish only plays 22 minutes for some reason against a team that like you desperately need wing defense with. It was a really weird, and again, we continue to get more minutes of the Austin, D'Lo, Taurean Prince combination. You just keep throwing that pitch out there and watching it get hammered out of the park, time in, time out every time we see it. And no, it was a weird game, and it was an annoying game in how predictable this effort was. At some point, the Lakers, are going to have to find it within themselves to, play with a little bit of urgency, even if the situation doesn't necessarily call for it. Like at some point, you just got to compete. And, in this Western Conference, if you regularly enough just kind of fart away games like this one. This is a game that I come at the end of the season, the Lakers are in the play-in, or if they miss the play-in or whatever by a single game, I'm going to look back on this one. Dallas was on the second night of a back-to-back. No Kyrie Irving, no Derek Jones Jr., no Dwight Powell, and I don't believe Maxi Kleba played in this one either. It was a shorthanded Dallas Mavericks team that just like wanted it more. They just, you had Tim Hardaway Jr. Not only was he scoring everywhere, but he took 3 charges, in this one. I don't believe the Lakers took a charge in this game. It was just, and again, like it was just extra possessions given up on the defensive side of the ball when guys, the Lakers must lead the league in, seconds in which their guys just have their hands down by their sides. And maybe they're being led by example with Darvin spending so much time with his hands in his pockets on the side of his body that everybody's like, well, that's natural playing position, right? That's natural engaged position. No, this is a really frustrating loss, and this is particularly frustrating just because you knew it was what was going to happen heading in. You hoped that the Lakers would be able to make enough plays to overcome the kind of lazy approach to this game, but they didn't, and now you have to make up for it elsewhere. The other annoying part of this one is again that so the Lakers had developed this identity, and it was an identity that I had bought so far into that I said, if this is their identity, they can win a championship. And that identity was wave after wave after wave of length on the perimeter, physicality, athleticism, give a bleep, right? And maybe that Pelicans game, right? The Pelicans were competitive at the beginning. I think it was a 1-point game after the first quarter, and then gradually the Lakers just kind of suffocate them, right? That's essentially what like anacondas do. Is there's fight at the beginning of it, but eventually the prey basically like tuckers itself out, and every time the prey exhales, the anaconda squeezes a little harder, and every time they exhale again, the anaconda squeezes a little harder, and eventually there's just no room to exhale or to inhale, and that's how like that just becomes over, and that's basically what the Lakers defense was doing to teams. Is yeah, you get a little fight at the beginning, but then like the harder that defense makes them work real hard, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to get a bucket over the course of the game, and eventually the team just kind of realizes that the opposing team just kind of like realizes this is tough, and there is now no room to inhale, and so like that was a really cool advantage that the Lakers were developing for themselves, and yet in this one, I guess simply because Jared Vanderbilt wasn't available, they go completely away from it, and you get 37 minutes of Taurean Prince, who played fine, played 5 of 6 from 3-point range. He wasn't necessarily the problem, certainly offensively, but you get 29 minutes of Rui Hachimura, who didn't play very well. And every time Luka saw him in front of him, all it takes apparently to get by Rui is just a quick jab step, and Rui is somewhere over yonder, and and Luka can just kind of get whatever he wants. And you just kept getting that combination throughout over the course of the game. And it's just I don't know if it was a conscious decision, because playing that way defensively is very taxing, and maybe the Lakers wanted to see if they could win in a little easier way, but they didn't in this one. And by the way, that's been the case all year. If the Lakers have relied on their offense to win them games, the offense hasn't been good enough to do that. And so like going back to that and hearkening back to that identity, again, it just kind of speaks to the way that Darvin Ham sees the game, and and his kind of ideological approach to it, where he wants to get as much offensive talent onto the court as possible, and that is kind of how he leans, whether it's creative talent, whether it is finishing talent, whether it is spacing talent. That's kind of what he prefers to play. That's why the Lakers keep going back to D'Lo, Austin, and Prince, despite the stats screaming at everybody at this point it's not working. Ham, this is the way that he kind of appears to see the sport, and this is his kind of approach to coaching in the sport. And I was hoping, and this is why I kept asking people, whether it was on the air, in a question that I asked Jovan, is this an identity that the Lakers are comfortable committing to? I ask people behind the scenes, in research for shows and in conversations that I do for shows. Like, it is the kind of thing that I do find myself always kind of wondering is this is clearly the best way for the Lakers to win games. That defensive identity, that suffocating and swarming defensive identity, that is the best way for the Lakers to win basketball games. Except that that isn't necessarily how Darvin sees things in terms of like how he would prefer to see the Lakers win games. And most coaches will just say, you win however you can. And I get that. Sure. But, for from my standpoint, especially having watched LeBron and AD win a championship through that type of suffocating and swarming defensive identity, that's again something that I would prefer to watch. That's how I would prefer to watch the Lakers play, especially now that we have seen the results look the way that they have. And in this one, if the Lakers just play any defense down the stretch whatsoever, this is probably a very different game. They lost by 2. 3 of those points were made up with a LeBron 3, as the clock expired or whatever. So it wasn't necessarily that close. The Lakers were down double digits, I would say, for most of like the most of 3 quarters, and then eventually fought back and took a lead going into the fourth. Real bummer that stat or that streak of winning however many games in a row, where the Lakers led coming into the fourth period, that streak is now over. But yeah, Jason puts it well here, on with a premium comment, which by the way, shouts to Jason, shouts to everybody subscribing and leaving these types of comments. But you cannot lose this game. It seems like Darvin is capable, but he shoots himself in the foot. Uh, Darvin's coaching shouldn't lack effort. Thanks. And yeah, I would. That's the thing, is that like this feels like a game where he kind of shot himself in the foot with approach and then never really responding to the way that the game was going is, again, it's just really kind of annoying. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's disheartening. I wouldn't even necessarily go so far as to say it's concerning yet. um I'm hoping over the course of this second season, Darvin starts to grow a little bit and starts, moving off of his ideological approach to the sport. But it is annoying. It is frustrating. And this is certainly a very frustrating loss that, you know, even given how predictable the effort was, it doesn't make it any less than, it's because of how predictable it was that is a loss that is going to sting here a little bit moving forward. Now moving into the micro aspects of this. So AD plays 37 minutes, scores 37 points, grabs 11 rebounds, 15 of 21 from the field, 1 of 2 from three-point range, 6 of 10 from the free throw line. Very good game. Great game from Anthony Davis. LeBron James, 40 minutes, 14 of 27 from the field, 3 of 8 from three-point range. He's starting to regress a little bit, I've kind of noticed. 2 of 3 from the free throw line. Really weird that he only shot 3 free throws in this one. But 33 points, 9 assists, 8 boards, 3 steals, a block. So that, like, if you are going to get 70 points from LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you have to win that game. If they're going to play 37 and 40 minutes apiece, you have to win that game. And it is just it really is a giant missed opportunity, that you get all of that from those two guys and you aren't able to turn it into something. And this is again where not having a point guard, a kind of prototypical point guard, um, kind of hurts you, because AD had 35 points going into the fourth period. He finishes with 37. LeBron, I don't think got very many opportunities. I'm going to go through here play by play in the fourth period to see how often LeBron had opportunities. So he made a layup 15 seconds into the quarter, and then made another layup a few minutes later, and then makes a 2-point shot a couple minutes after that. So that's 6 points. Then he makes another layup, 8 points in the quarter. Offensive foul, turnover from LeBron. Let's go here. And that's it for until LeBron makes that 3-pointer late in the game. We'll look at AD here, right? So Anthony Davis again entered with maybe at 34 points. AD doesn't get an attempt until 5 minutes left in the game. He makes a layup, and then he gets fouled a play later, it looks like, and splits the free throws. Makes another 2-pointer later in the game, and that was with 3 minutes left. And then we don't see anything from AD for the remainder of the game. And yeah, that is just when you're going away from LeBron James and when you're going away from AD, and they were, I guess, LeBron was a little bit more present in the fourth quarter offensively than it felt. But yeah, it's just, sometimes what teams will do is they'll kind of play possum and they will give you the matchup that you're looking for because it takes away from the other matchup that they're a little bit more nervous about. And it felt like Dallas in this one kept giving Austin Reeves opportunities. And they kept basically making it so that he had to keep the ball in his hands. And they gave him an okay enough matchup that he felt like he needed to attack. And that essentially winds up taking the ball out of LeBron's hands. And, credit to Kidd for doing that and credit to Dallas for executing that. But yeah, it was weird how easy it felt to take LeBron and AD kind of out of the fourth quarter. And so if you aren't getting stops on one end and you aren't taking advantage of what LeBron offers on the offensive end, that's how you lose close fourth quarters. And the fourth quarter, there was like I think like 8 minutes or so to go in the game, and I said to the guys on All Access Lakers today, who I was doing the game with, I said, like, man, I really wish the Lakers hadn't have taken that lead going into this period because I feel like that streak is going to end tonight. Because this just feels like a loss. It feels like one of those games that the Lakers are going to make one or two too many mistakes, and it's going to wind up biting them to the tune of a loss. And lo and behold, that's kind of what it looked like. They got you know no stops basically in the fourth period. They, I don't. It's a stupid loss, and I think this is where no matter if the Lakers bring in a primary ball handler, if they bring in another wing, if they whatever they turn D'Angelo Russell into, um, they need to find somebody, or ideally, this would be your coach to like take a timeout and remind everybody, hey, yeah, the two best players on the team, we should maybe keep them involved in the fourth period. Just thought, just a notion, throwing it out there. A comment, I'll put a comment into the comment box. Just an idea. I'm an idea guy, Let's get the ball to LeBron. Let's try that. Let's get the ball back to AD. Let's try that. But no, instead the Lakers, I think, kind of mess around a little bit too much, and it winds up costing them. Let's go. Jason again asks, confidence in us without Braun and or AD tomorrow. I think AD plays because he has made a point of being available this season. So my guess is AD plays in this one. LeBron, well, he's playing. It's a Wemby game, and for those who have wondered, and I'm surprised that nobody else has made this point in listening to the reaction over the last few days to the Lakers beating the crap out of the Pelicans like they did last Thursday. Nobody has made the point that LeBron has specifically gone at Zion basically since Zion came into the league with all of the hype, right? Remember, Zion was called the best prospect coming out of college or entering the NBA since LeBron. And yeah, LeBron has always seemed to take that matchup very personally. Surprised that point hasn't been made very much. And I feel like if that's what he does with Zion, maybe he takes that same approach with Wemby. The Spurs have lost 17 games in a row. Please extend that to 18. I have like a weird kind of uneasy feeling about this game tomorrow, whether or not those guys play. Because, like, look, they played in this one. Like, those guys were available and they were great in this one. And the Lakers lost regardless. And I think it's, again, it kind of goes back to how kind of entitled I think this Lakers team can be or is, right? Until they prove me wrong more consistently, I think you can use that term to describe them. And that goes all the way up to coaching too, where, you know, I know a lot of times the cliche is if you lose to Dante Exum threes, you just kind of lose to Dante Exum threes. And that's kind of true to a certain extent, right? But once the guy is like, 4 or 5, 6 of 7 in that range or whatever, you you get a hand up, you like try to break his rhythm in some way. Even if that player isn't a historically very good shooter, you don't want to just forfeit, right? And in this one, it felt like the Lakers just kind of forfeited as soon as it looked like Dante Exum was going to be the player to beat them. And I with how tight this conference is going to be, the Lakers, I think, had they won this one, could have jumped all the way up to third in the standings, and now are probably going to be sitting around like the 8 or 10 area, depending on if Phoenix beats the Warriors. So yeah, this is an annoying loss, a missed opportunity, and I think reminds us of some of the issues that had been, you know, that have made us nervous to this point. And now it's a matter of kind of getting back to the things that made them effective. One being, you know, getting more wings out there more often, and you know, D'ing up, playing defense, suffocating the other team. My last point on this one has to do with Gabe Vincent. And I have wondered what the rotation would look like, but this is the kind of game that Gabe would have really helped in. I think he sees the game a little closer to the way a traditional point guard does. He is a lot steadier, I think, at least on the defensive side of things, than D'Angelo Russell is. And so, like in a game like this, if you have Vincent, you play Vincent a few more minutes, and Russell winds up playing like maybe as low as 10 to 15 because he was just bad. Like it was a very bad D'Angelo Russell game. Bad shot selection, some stupid lazy turnovers, uh defensively just not very engaged and focused, not physical enough to go out and grab rebounds and stuff like that. And in a game like this, like you could, if you have Vincent, just get him out of there, right? And we'll see what that looks like in the next week or so, if and when Vincent is actually available and ready to go. But yeah, in this one, this is a bad D'Angelo Russell game. And I see a lot of people saying like, get this guy out of here, get this guy out of here. One, you can't, and for another few days or so, and two, the Lakers are not going to until they get more of a sample size with more of their roster. That means getting Gabe back. That means having Vanderbilt for more, than a few games where he's playing on a minutes restriction. The Lakers aren't going to make any roster decisions unless some team just gives them some ridiculous offer. The Lakers are not going to make any choices or any actual changes to their roster until as we get closer to January or February. And that means that the guys that they have right now have to get healthy and then have to execute and have to play better. This one kind of comes down to, I think there's some coaching issues, but I think this one is more on the players. This was the guys taking a night off and hoping to be able to flip that switch, going to try to flip that switch and not being able to, in part because of some personnel decisions on the court, but also because in the NBA, if you rely on flipping that switch and you don't respect the other team enough, you're going to get bit. And they did. All right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown. We have another game tonight by the time you guys are listening to this against the San Antonio Spurs. I will be back on All Access Lakers to watch that with the guys there. So check us out there, playback.tv/All Access Lakers. And then immediately following the game, I will be right back here, either with a guest or by myself, whatever it is. I will see you guys right back here in the lounge. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. And for the love of God, please guard Dante Exum. He made another 3 while I've been talking. Guard him, please.